everyone. Welcome to Business with the Chat. My name is Manchidi, and I am the host of Business with the Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship with my special guest, Setlogane. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, and you. Thanks for having us.
I am so happy. Finally, we made it. The last time I was able
Yes.
to. So,
No,
yeah,
everything happens for a reason, eh? We save the best
I
for
believe
another
so.
day.
I believe so. Everything is working out perfectly, no struggles. So the
Yeah.
reason for my business is the chat initiative is just to talk to different people in different sectors about their entrepreneurship journey, hoping to also reach out to big corporates to get insights on how we can reach out to other aspiring entrepreneurs, even entrepreneurs, especially in my community, so we can network, connect, help each other, and see how we can grow each other. So, without further ado, I'm going to hit you with the first question. So,
Yes.
you have been known as the head of CSI at Investec, a position you've held for over a decade and a half. Tell us about yourself and your role at Investec and what kept you committed and what you do.
Molebogang, I mean, I guess this is an interesting space. Corporate social investment is not a job but a calling. I left Accenture about 18 years ago to join Investec, where I joined them as a CSI consultant and 2 years later became head of corporate social investments. And really, what has kept me within Investec, of course, is the place Investec is entrepreneurial in nature, has given me the scope, the latitude, but more so that it is that place that cares. One of our key values is that of unselfish contribution to society and others. And in fact, our purpose, as restated recently, is to create enduring worth living within and not of society. And that kind of makeup, part of our DNA, has really kept me part and parcel of Investec for as long as I have been. But also in that the role that I play is a role that facilitates change in people's lives. And for me to have witnessed the level of transformation, to have witnessed youngsters move from grade 10 through to matric, through to university, through to the world of work, and through to the changes that they implement and make in their own lives and families and communities. That's what's really kept me. It's actually priceless, that which we see. It's a lot more fulfilling to witness the kind of change, the kind of transformation that we facilitate in society to the extent that which we do. So I'm very, very excited every day. And I guess I wake up every day full of hope. I mean, there's a lot in South Africa that can keep one down. But when I meet youngsters who against all odds, strive to better themselves, and not only just themselves, but to better the world, to better their own community, to better their country. When I meet youngsters who are entrepreneurially minded, who really are hell bent on making a difference in society, I get very, very excited. So yeah, that's really the length and the breadth of it. That says, lucky to have been at Investec for as long as I've been. Very privileged indeed to have played the role that I've played for Investec, for society, and for those who benefit from that which we do. Thank you. You are on mute, Molebogang. You're on mute. I cannot hear.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No,
So I've been saying,
no
I'm
problem.
saying you've been doing this for quite some time. This is awesome. I would actually do with your expertise. At least now I know you. I can pop you an email. So so being in a corporate like Investec and in your role within the business, what do you believe to be the significance of entrepreneurship in our country like ours?
You know, I really want to say to you that entrepreneurship is very, very important. Entrepreneurship is significant from a perspective that says it can enable both the entrepreneur and the many other people to become active economic participants in society. And you see, when you are active economically, your sense of worth, your sense of contribution, your sense of purpose, your ability to put bread on the table, sense of dignity, all that is good, which gives you much more to lose. You know, when I looked around following the June, July riots, I couldn't help but think that in this country, there are a lot of people with very little to lose. Very little to lose because they are not included in any way. They don't wake up and find something meaningful to do. They don't wake up and see hope and see possibilities for themselves. And that's really risky for a country such as ours. And entrepreneurship can give the entrepreneur and many other people that very zest and zeal for, this is my country, I have got a lot to lose, I've got vested interest in it, and I must look out for it. Now, but also, let's also say entrepreneurs are by nature and definition job creators as opposed to job seekers. So it is important that we look to support entrepreneurship in some shape or form, because, you know, traditionally our education system, not only just in the South African context, in many other contexts, has taught people to become job seekers. You go to primary school, you go to high school, you go to university, and you go look for a job. What entrepreneurship reminds us is actually you can do all that, but you can also come back and look to create a job, look to create your own empire, look to build your own success, and in turn, the success of many other people. So I get very excited about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship in this country. But also, we are a country beheaded by challenges. We have way too many challenges in this country. And in every single challenge lies an opportunity for an entrepreneurial solution to it. And that's it. That's it. That we need entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs alike to look around, to look at everyday challenges and to explore meaningful ways in which they can help make a difference by responding to these challenges that in turn represent entrepreneurial opportunities. So I really think here there is really an opportunity for people as entrepreneurs to create and realize economic value for themselves and financial gains for themselves, but whilst creating value for the broader communities and society. So you can tell I'm very excited about any prospect of encouraging people to explore entrepreneurship because of the difference it can really make. And for many who may have thought they haven't got it in them, I challenge them to sit back and really reflect on that which they struggle with every day and how it is that which they struggle with every day can be an entrepreneurial kind of opportunity, if not for themselves, for other people to take advantage of.
100%. So someone here on TikTok is saying the challenge of small business that dies at an early age. What are some of the reasons behind that besides the money aspect?
You know, let me say this to you. Very many a times, entrepreneurs and those who start businesses start them from a place of passion. It's like those who start NPOs, you know, not-for-profit organizations. They start them from a place of passion. Now, passion, of course, is an important departure point. Something of interest to you is an important departure point. But to make a success of that passion, to make a success of business, needs one to understand the basic tenets of entrepreneurship, the basic tenets of business, understanding business models, understanding how this is about monetizing that which you're passionate about. And very often, if that's not very well understood, then these enterprises are doomed to fail. But having spent a lot of time in Israel, in and out many a times, and on entrepreneurship related kind of visits there, I was very encouraged that investors in Israel, actually when they have a conversation with a possible entrepreneur to invest in, one of the critical questions they ask them is, how many times have you failed? And in fact, if you turn around and say, I've never failed, they'll be very worried. And if you turn around and say, I've never failed, the chances of you receiving investment in your business, in that venture, are very slim. Because it is also equally important to say to people that, yes, entrepreneurship is a hard road, and some enterprises will fail along the way. But in my view, this is part of paying school fees. In my view, this is part and parcel of us getting to learn the ropes. And we in the South African context don't encourage enough by way of a culture of failure. Actually, failing is necessary at times, because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And if you are indeed an entrepreneur, you'll emerge having paid the school fees with very important lessons that you take into your next venture. And that's what it's about. I mean, when I engage with emerging entrepreneurs who are today somewhat successful, they say to me, I failed a number of times. I failed a number of times. And that's important to also bear that in mind. And also to say, it is a tough road. And there are school fees to be paid, and there are resources to be tapped into to make this journey a lot lighter than it really is in essence.
So yeah, you basically touched on the next question that I was about to ask. In your role, you engage a lot with the emerging entrepreneurs. What are some of the challenges that they are facing?
You know, many a times entrepreneurs, the first prize of a challenge they'll raise is finance. I say finance. I'll have you know, though, that I also have the opportunity to engage with possible investors or those who look for emerging businesses to invest in. And they will tell you that actually money is not the problem. The problem is the caliber of businesses we put out there. And I think this is linked to the last question and my response to it, that says we have to have school fees, we have to learn as much as we can learn so that we can put together these lessons in developing a much better caliber of a business and entrepreneurs that we can put in front of investors. Right? Sometimes the business concept is right, but the jockey is a challenge. It's like you've got a right concept, but I look at you and I'm thinking, I'm a level head. You really think you could do this catering business? Yeah, I believe. You really think you could do? It's not a judgment onto you. It's really an essence of saying, how does half the time when you part with money, when you invest into, you look to part with money on the back of a very strong jockey to back. Very often the people that get money, they sometimes get the money for the most ludicrous businesses and business ideas. But because of the jockey, because of the person who's convincing, who is driven, who can sell ice to the ice Eskimos, who really can make a success of almost anything that they touch, you back them. You back them. And sometimes it's the other way around. And sometimes, of course, it's the jockey on the wrong horse. And ours is to try and guide them to, make sure that they are on the right horse. But in the practical sense, I mean, in the South African context, load shedding is real. I mean, this is hard for emerging entrepreneurs. Load shedding is real. And whilst the established businesses such as Investec and all others can afford to run generators at a massive cost, emerging business people cannot. And really this energy crisis that we have in this country, if there's anything that we really got to do is we've got to invest into seeking a solution, and a speedy solution. I mean, every single time I hear Eskom announce a possible load shedding to kick in any time, I think, imagine as a business person who just get told an hour before or half an hour before that, sorry for you, but we're going into load shedding. Of course, I know it's not voluntary, but I'm just trying to say these are real challenges that emerging entrepreneurs face on a daily basis. And as a country, we've really got to rally behind. And I call on the president, I call on all citizens to rally behind seeking a solution to the energy crisis, because it really gets in the way. But let me also say that connectivity, really, we are streaming on a social media platform. Connectivity in this country, many emerging entrepreneurs who may be wanting to listen to this, or any other people, are not able to listen to it freely and accessibly, because connectivity in this country leaves many people behind. Now, that's a serious challenge. There are many other opportunities, which business opportunities for that matter, which could be, be put on mobile platforms and the likes, but with poor connectivity, that's pie in the sky. That's not going to reach the target market that you're possibly trying to reach. That's not, so yeah, I mean, the list is endless. I just don't want to carry on. Right? These are conversations. But I guess I'm raising them here because I'm saying this is not a whining session. This is, in fact, a call to action for those who are able to participate meaningfully in the resolution of these challenges, because we have got many own goals that we shoot as a country. And we've really got to look to really pick a few of these, prioritize them, and really open up the landscape for emerging entrepreneurs.
And somebody is saying here, the challenge I have in my business is infrastructure, in cultural and resources that will enable them to kind of maybe push their business. So
Yes. I mean, the infrastructure, so obviously the IT is another infrastructure, but if you think about it, we haven't built enough by way of like warehouses, places where entrepreneurs could, I mean, people who deal with upholstery, where if you go to Alex today, where are you going to try and set up this upholstery business? Which space is there readily available to enable you to do this? A panel beater. I mean, a lot of panel beaters that I know in Alex who really just want to operate in this strip of street and whatever. And it's a struggle because it's scrapped. But if there were facilities, I bet you a lot of these hidden gems would emerge and would be centralized for everybody to know, and would inconvenience very few people if we find infrastructure that is aimed at really enabling these entrepreneurs to succeed. So there is a lot to be done, but I think we've just got to be deliberate. We've got to be deliberate.
yeah, so somebody saying they won't allow solutions because it's not beneficial to their game plan.
Oh, wow. Well, we have to push for solutions because it's beneficial for the country. It's beneficial for us. It's beneficial for society. So you've got to push for solutions.
Yeah. So my next question is, Investec through your division supports a number of programs aimed at emerging entrepreneurs. Can you tell us a bit about some of these programs?
You know, we have always supported a number of business development kind of programs. Before COVID, I mean, COVID changed the world in many ways than one. We used to have the Global Exposure Program, which used to take entrepreneurs per different sectors to different parts of the world. So we took those in agriculture to Israel, because Israel is a desert, yet it flourishes in agriculture. We took entrepreneurs in education to Finland, because Finland is lights ahead. Some education entrepreneurs we've taken to Singapore. We've taken IT, those in IT, to Seattle, Silicon Valley, to a whole host of these other places. And that was really to drive growth through global exposure, to show entrepreneurs here locally based what is possible, and to bring it back home and to apply it in their own businesses. Of course, COVID was not to have any of that, and that has now since been parked. But that goes into the same stable as the entrepreneurship kind of programs we've got. But we've also have Startup School in association with GSB's, UCT's GSB Graduate School of Business Foundation, where really, in essence, it's those who wanting to start businesses or those already in businesses sign up for this online course. at no cost to them, at no major cost to them, other than a commitment fee, to really be exposed to the basic tenets of entrepreneurship. And wow, I am fascinated. I'm in awe of every cohort that goes through that program. It ranges from township-based entrepreneurs to those in urban areas, to those who've got side hustles, who are employed currently, but have an edge to consider entrepreneurship as another alternative. So really, it's a number of these programs that we run, including the finance readiness program, because as I said to you earlier on, it's not the lack of finance; it's the readiness of businesses to receive this finance. So we take on businesses for a period of about 6 months, and we take them into panel beating. We get them to relook at their business model, to look at all the legal stuff, to look at the HR stuff, to look at the tax standing, to look at every aspect of business that an investor will be keen to know about if it was not, if they were to invest in that business. And we get them into shape. At the end of it, these entrepreneurs have a pitch deck and have got an investor roundtable to pitch at for possible investment. And we have raised money for some of these businesses through that program. That is finance readiness. But we also have another one equally, which is market readiness. Sometimes we will call for access to market. But what does it take for you to gain access to market? Your positioning, your brand, your social media profiling, all this. All this has a bearing on gaining access to market. So we spend some time with the entrepreneurs who sign up to say, my business is solid, but I'm struggling with access to market, and I would like to go through this program to try and really hone in to what ought to be done to get my business ready for such. So yeah, those are some of the programs that we run that I have seen make a meaningful difference in society.
I need to sign up because I'm struggling.
Awesome. No, awesome. Put up your hand and sign up. I mean, I guess that's the point, and this is the point that I also like to convey to entrepreneurs out there. Signing up to any of these programs is not a sign of weakness. If anything, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of self-awareness, and it's a sign that you have bigger aspirations. It's like, you're not locked up in your own world and cocoon. You have much bigger aspirations than where you're at. Signing up is really about putting your foot in the door and really looking to open up many other doors thereafter. So yes, please, let's encourage as many people to, for starters, just startup school. The next time we look for startups, when startup schools, put up your hand. I have been amazed at the feedback that I've received from those who've gone through startup school. Overwhelmingly so.
Wow. I think, I hope whoever is going to watch this will be encouraged to sign up, to do something about their startup,
Exactly.
So, in your view, what is the significance of skills development for emerging entrepreneurs and why?
So I guess the question, skills development for startups or for emerging entrepreneurs, it is important. I go back to the first question, or one of the first questions you asked me, and I said, businesses are started by people with passion. They are started by people who observe something, and they are, in fact, in many instances, the people I come across, they themselves personally have experienced something, and they said, no, there's got to be a solution to this. Plus size women. I was engaging with another lady yesterday. I was so encouraged by her, and she was saying, she struggled to find clothing, and that's why she went out and she said, this is what I'm going to do. And she's put a beautiful range of plus size women clothing, right? Amazing stuff. But this is important. It is an area of interest to that person, and an area of passion, and it relates to their lives. But running a business is not just about solving your own issues. It's not just about your own passion. Running a business is about understanding the basic pillars of a business. And this is what startup school really does. It gives people the opportunity, a glimpse into, market segmentation, the significance of it. It gives people into a glimpse into the financial pieces of, financial modeling is very important in any business. Otherwise, you run the risk of running an NPO. It's like it's running, but it's not generating. No, listen, I've just written a piece on NPOs. I respect NPOs. They have a place, but in the context of business, we monetize. And we must monetize. That monetization is a skill. That monetization requires you to have had a basic introduction into entrepreneurship and the key considerations as to how do you monetize, what you consider when you monetize, and. Sometimes a business is based on sheer volumes. Sometimes it's not sheer volumes, but the margins are high. But those conversations are not conversations. It wouldn't be part of the vocab of somebody who's just passionate. All they want to do is solve and address, but they're not thinking in business terms. So skills development is an important piece, but not only just in business terms. So if for example, you go and you want to start a winery, right? Of course, you need to do some entrepreneurship, business-related skills development. But you got to develop yourself in understanding this winery business. How do you go into developing, into the production of wine if you know nothing about it? So you got to go out there and skill yourself, right? Similarly with perfumes. With anything that you choose to focus on, skills development is important. It's important from an entrepreneurship development skill perspective, but it is also important to skill yourself in your market, to skill yourself in your product, to skill yourself in your sector, to skill yourself. So yeah, skills development, and very often entrepreneurs claim they don't have the time for it, but actually I think they rob themselves of an opportunity to really finesse and catapult into the next level very quickly by virtue of having developed themselves in that way.
So somebody's saying we can't focus on development when we are politically oppressed. The freedom to create is limited.
Well, I'm not too sure that I really. I agree entirely. I go to Ntate Maponya as an example. The late Ntate Maponya as an example in Soweto. Was an icon at the times of. Herman Mashaba has gone into politics now, but Black Like Me, all these pieces were created in the thick of apartheid. Right? Today, it's 20 odd years post apartheid. Of course, there are challenges, systemic challenges to entrepreneurship, systemic challenges at all societal levels. I agree, but I'm not sure I entirely agree with the view that we are oppressed to that extent. Look at Batu, Theo. Really? This you can't tell me that we are that oppressed. If we're that oppressed, I want to say to anybody who feels we're oppressed to really look at themselves and to break away from these invisible chains, because trust me, these are invisible chains. They are tying us down too much. And in that way, I'm sad to say we are possibly then our own greatest oppressors. Nobody else is oppressing us. We are our own greatest oppressors. I don't want to downplay the systemic challenges. I don't want to downplay the challenges that we all have to overcome to make a success in entrepreneurship, to make a success in a whole host of other people. I don't want to downplay the risk of tenderpreneurship. I don't want to there's so many facets. But I also want to say to people, please, Charlie Leroux, free yourself from this piece that says, I agree, there's possibly chances of people who, pull her Down syndrome or pull him down syndrome, all those bits and pieces. They're there, I know. But we do have to navigate them. Such is life. All I want to say to you is we are not as oppressed as we were back in the day. I don't believe we are. Of course, there are challenges. And of course, other people don't want to see us succeed, we think. But such is life. I always say to people, look at any room full of people. And I say to them, I make this use of this example. I say, stare at these people in the eyes. And I say, you know what? I'm going to say one of the most difficult things. Just look at the people in the room. And I challenge those who are watching us today virtually in this room to say, if you look around, even in this virtual room, then for all I know, many people don't like you. And in fact, most of them don't have to like you. And in fact, for all I know, none of them like you. But what is important is you got to hustle. You got to push. Because there's always going to be those who are going to try get in the way of your own progress and your own development. You can't say because people don't like me, or the world seemingly doesn't like me. I don't think it's the world that doesn't like you. There are pockets of people who don't like you. You've got to hustle in such a way that it's going to become very difficult for them to ignore you along the road. Whether they don't like you or not, I'm sure Theo Baloy with Batu had this piece around people not liking him. But my goodness, whether they don't like him or not, today they wear Batu. And that's important. That's what we're going to hustle for.
Yes, yes. Talking of entrepreneurship, what is the township economy and how vital is the township economy to SA's recovery?
The township economy is in essence refers to, in my view, the many enterprises based in townships, created and fully operated in most instances by township dwellers themselves, delivering much needed but paid for services and products, examples of spaza shops, rented rooms, hair salons, car wash facilities, panel beating. The list is endless, but these are businesses that emerge in a township themselves, owned and founded by people who live in the township and who really address one need or another. And the township economy, in my view, is very important to South Africa's recovery. Why? Let's just reflect on where we are now. Because the extended presence of COVID and associated restrictions has led to a high job losses, which in the main represents the economic exclusion of many, negatively impacting on the livelihoods and survival of these individuals and families. So the township economy provides a possible solution to this crisis, as it represents a platform for many of those who have lost their jobs to re-enter the economy by looking for opportunities that may initially just keep them above the poverty line. But if all goes well, it could do much more than just survival for them and others who they may employ or even do business with, for that matter. So I really think that township economy should not be underestimated. It's very valuable. As many talk of gas economics, it's just important for us to encourage the numbers that live in Alex, that live in Mamelodi, Atteridgeville, that live in Zwide, that live in all these other townships, to really look around and look for opportunities to create income for themselves, but not only create income for themselves, employ others, and possibly even grow out of these opportunities to something even greater over time.
So please share some of your township entrepreneurs that inspire you and give you hope.
I, through the work that I do, have really bumped into a number of entrepreneurs, and I cannot do justice to all of them, but I'm just going to give an example, for example, of some of them. I think of Olisa Mene, a participant of Investec's sponsored startup school, who actually started a radiography business, right? Xolisa Mene Diagnostics, it's called, which provides diagnostics X-ray services within his community. So Xolisa grew up in PE and saw how doctors in townships send patients so far away to hospitals to really go and get X-rays and a whole host of other diagnostics. And he said, no, but surely there should be no need for people in this township to go and leave the township, to go and go to a hospital far away to get access to this machinery that will give them X-rays and other possible, lead to some possible diagnosis. And he started this Xolisa Mene Diagnostics. Amazing. I mean, this gives me hope. It's again, I keep saying, it's people who live within communities who see and observe real challenges, but who through entrepreneurship, whilst an opportunity for them to create value for themselves, make life easier for the community which they support. I mean, that is awesome. Awesome. And he was a participant of Startup School. I mean, I've spoken so much about Startup School. I must actually say to people, please Google Startup School. Go or visit startupschools.ac. Really, you'll hear a lot more, and you'll be inspired by a whole host of other entrepreneurs who've shared their journeys there. But another one that I think of is Refile Rantakwe, Boroto Bakery Enterprise. Also a participant of the InvestX CSI Global Exposure Program that I spoke about, that unfortunately COVID has put on ice. He joined 18 other food and beverage sector South African entrepreneurs on an exposure trip to Amsterdam with us as part of this program. But in essence, what Refile started was, he started, in his view, his business when commercially produced bread, right, commercially became unaffordable for many in his community, right? Because he was watching, he was following successive price increases of bread. And he said, no, my township people cannot afford the bread that continuously increases in price to the extent to which he is witnessed. And therefore he started a business, Operata Bakery. And he said, he did not know how he was going to make profit, but he knew that he had to do something to help people afford food. I mean, this is critical. It's like you watch people in your own community. Many of them live off grants. You know that the price of bread is excessive. And you said, okay, we've got to bring affordable bread into the township. And in the process, he started a business that he first used the bicycle to deliver 40 loaves a day, and later he graduated to trolleys and doubled his volumes. And within 6 months, the operation was producing 200 loaves a day after adding a night shift. I mean, look at that. His motive was, people in my township cannot afford the price increases as far as bread is concerned. I want to deliver affordable bread. I want to solve a problem. But look at what he's gone and done. He's now, in his business, supplies spaza shops, informal traders, and local restaurants that serve bunny chows and so on. That's for me. I mean, you ask me, entrepreneurs who give me hope. That actually gives me, I've got goosebumps thinking about individuals such as these, because it is the social impact on broader society that really excites me the most. That says a lot more people from this young man's business are going to benefit, not only by gaining affordable bread, but also by gaining employment. Wow! I mean, this again, the list is endless that I could share with you.
That's one of the reasons I do this, so people can hear such stories and get inspired. You can do something, and it can grow, and you can make a huge difference. Especially in your own community.
Yeah, it can.
Are
It
you,
really
are
can.
you, Are you reading the comment below?
Oh, I must have missed the comment below. What does it say? Our tech development sector is elementary. Tech development sector is supported by government. Agreed. Agreed. See, I think, in essence, and this is what we're going to do as entrepreneurs, as civil society, we have got to facilitate conversations that matter, right? But not only conversations that matter, actions that matter, right? So the highlighting some of these challenges that we are seeing is an important piece. But we've also got to put out a call to action. We've got to say to people, we've got to do something about that which we know are serious challenges. I mean, I still tell you now, COVID has taught me a lot, and I'm going to digress a bit. But in one of our education programs, we had to go online because obviously lockdown restrictions prevented us from meeting face to face, high touch, high contact. And I got to see how privileged I am that on a daily basis I sit and I take this phone of mine. You mention anything? One of the first, my best friends is Google. You mention someone, best friends is Google. It's become second nature to me, right? I don't even think twice. Whether it's on my iPad, whatever, I don't even think twice. But that's where I go. Now, how is it that 20 odd years after democracy, the majority of people in this country do not have the privilege that I have? I mean, this is such a privilege. And in fact, because it's become second nature, I take things for granted until we were forced to move things online and I realized how unrealistic. Everybody keeps thinking, no, we'll solve the world's problem by using technology. Of course, technology is great. But the context of it is we need infrastructure that supports technology. And until we prioritize as a nation the ability, I tell you now, there are entities laying out Wi-Fi zones and whatever. This cannot be done fast enough. We must lay out as many Wi-Fi zones as we can as fast as possible, because you will be amazed how much we will unlock entrepreneurially, how much we will unlock educationally, how much we will unlock in health-wise, how much we will unlock in research terms, how much we will unlock just by virtue of people getting, and by the way, including those who are going to sit and stream movies and whatever, they're going to be kept out of mischief and out of trouble. So it's fine. There's going to be so much benefit to society and community just by giving people access.
100%. Because somebody once asked me that, you're doing this. What about people in rural areas who would love to kind of like um, hear such information, engage on such topics?
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
that's another conversation. That's another problem.
Now, you see, the issue here, what you're talking about is inclusion. And inclusion, sometimes people only think of it in economic terms. Of course, economic inclusion is important. But it's not only just about economic inclusion. It's inclusion into conversations. It's inclusion into discourse. It's inclusion into many other things. And the point you're raising now is how the majority in rural areas, the majority in other places, have been excluded from participating in meaningful conversations and participating in things that could potentially be of benefit to them. And we really have to think twice about this, that if we're to really change the trajectory, we've got to bring inclusion, not only in terms of economic inclusion, but information inclusion, conversation inclusion, inclusion in many respects. And some of this exclusion is unintended. But unintended or not, it's exclusion. It is exclusion. And that's the bottom line.
True, 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 true. And yeah, one of the question is, What role can the corporate sector play in driving entrepreneurship more to the township-based entrepreneurship?
Well, I think, of course, we mustn't look only just to corporates to play a role here. Society has to play a role. Government has to play a role. But as you would have heard me, corporates, in the main, try in many respects to play some part. And one of them, for example, is to support programs that stimulate entrepreneurial thinking and innovation among school-going children. I'm very worried that the entrepreneurship conversation in the South African context takes place much later in life. I really think the entrepreneurship conversation should take place much earlier in life. If you think about many entrepreneurs that I've met and come across, many of them will tell you they grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. They were exposed to an entrepreneurial uncle, dad, entrepreneurial mom. Someone in the family was entrepreneurial, and the seed was planted very early, and they too got a sense that they were entrepreneurial. Now, for the majority in this country, they don't grow up in such families, and yet our schooling doesn't allow and facilitate entrepreneurial kind of conversations. Again, I say yes, entrepreneurship somewhat is part of curricula, but to what extent we really operationalize that part of curricula, I'm not convinced. We need to have youngsters as early as possible engaged in thinking about the possibility of entrepreneurship and not be part of a sausage machine. A sausage machine, by the way, that just says to them with blinkers, you're going only one way and you're all supposed to all get to matric and you're all supposed to go from matric to university. Listen, the truth of the matter is we lose way too many people. Our education system is like a leaking funnel that along the way, as people move from grade 1 to grade 12, we lose so many of them. Right? And partly we also lose so many of them because we channel them into feeling and believing that matric is the one and only exit point, and should be. It shouldn't be the one and only exit point. There should be many exit points here. Not everybody is matric inclined, but there could be technical or vocational skills, and on the back of which people can start their own little operations and businesses. So you've got to marry vocational technical skills with exposure to entrepreneurial thinking and activity. The two, I think, if we as corporates, as government, could support at a very early age the stimulation of entrepreneurial thinking activity among school-going children, I think we will have come a very long way. Secondly, I think we've alluded to this. Businesses are often started for individual survival purposes. They're created with very little know-how in terms of what is required to run a successful business. So corporates could support programs such as the Investec supported startup school, aimed at better skilling and equipping entrepreneurs to build solid businesses. And again, this is not about training for the sake of training. This is not about training people until they're blue in the face. This is just about creating the basic understanding of running businesses, just so that you do so. The funny thing about it is, if you start something with passion and you've got the skill, I think your confidence in the space grows, and with confidence should come even better chances of success in your business. So businesses should look for opportunities that enable the skilling of entrepreneurs in many ways than one. If I think of the Global Exposure Program, it wasn't training per se, but it was exposure to what systems, to what processes, to where other countries are at in a specific sector that stimulates an entrepreneurial kind of thinking and activity and excitement amongst those who want to pursue businesses in those spaces. So that's what we're going to try and do. And then I suppose we also have to try and encourage exposure and mentorship opportunities that help aspiring entrepreneurs see what a series of initial failures coupled with perseverance, dedication and hard work did for many who who today we consider to be seasoned entrepreneurs. I can't help but think of Investec's former CEO, Stephen Kosef, an entrepreneur in his own right. When given any opportunity to engage with young, hungry people for success, I can just imagine him saying, as he often told me, it doesn't matter how difficult it may be, just put your head down and keep betting. But now, that is amazing mentorship. That was amazing exposure for people such as ourselves. And other entrepreneurs need to hear seasoned entrepreneurs be able to say to them, listen, it comes in cycles. What goes up must come down, what goes down must go up again. And only people who with experience, who've lived through the many different cycles, can give you that hope and that glimmer of carry on. So we should perhaps also try and expose people to mentorship opportunities, even if it's not necessarily one-on-one mentorship opportunities, but group mentorship, whatever forms of mentorship. I think we should facilitate that. Lastly, it's not just the last thing, but it's the last on my list anyway. It is important to support programs such as the Investec Supported Finance Readiness Program, aimed at helping emerging entrepreneurs to structure and build their businesses in such a way that they become attractive to possible financiers and investors. Remember, I think there are too many things that can contribute to emerging entrepreneur success, but there are possibly two levers that can really help the pace at which businesses pick up, and the pace that is required in this country, by the way, because there's too many people who are sitting on the fence. COVID has wreaked havoc. People are unemployed. People need to be re-engaged yet again. And that is access to finance, but not only just access to finance, whether you're ready for that finance that you're going to get, and access to market, but not just access to market, but it's readiness for access to market. What's required to help you unlock markets? So yeah, that for me is some of the programs that I think corporates such as ourselves and many others can support.
And I want to ask you something. So, in terms of your programs, so has it ever gotten to a point where you've taken in someone, helped them with their business, and they kind of like failed? Is there something you do about it, or you just let them go, or what happens?
You see, ours is not an incubation, right? So we don't incubate. This is a very different approach. You expose people to different opportunities which they will use at different points and times. We just did an independent review. So we had an external consultant come in who did a research and review of Startup School. And it was amazing how many of Startup School beneficiaries gave meaningful feedback and response, and we're very excited about what they got from Startup School. But what was important was, as part of that review, we kind of gotten a sense of how many businesses succeeded and how many previously were not employing people but today were employing people, and so on. And that was very encouraging to see. But equally, there were those who indicated that because of COVID, they've really struggled to really get off the ground in the way that they had envisaged to get off the ground. But even then, they still tell you that as much as we struggle, we are aware that it's more as a result of circumstances that we've struggled. But what we take with us from the likes of Startup School will stand us in good stead, if not for this particular business, but for another venture that we may start in the future. And that's how it is, right? We must encourage that lessons, as I said, school fees will be paid, lessons will be learned, but no experience is ever wasted, should ever be wasted. We must learn to be very reflective of everything that happens in our lives, and take the good with the bad, but more so try and take much of the lessons with us as we proceed.
Thank you so much. So, in closing, can you give some advice or any last comments?
Thank you, Lebo, for having us. I love chatting, as you can see, on these matters. They're very close to my heart. But I want to give a word of encouragement to many naysayers, to those who are involved in side hustles, to those who are doubtful of should I not. And I want to say to you, no experience in this regard is ever a waste. Go out there and get to do. And in fact, get to do because there's no better teacher than what I call the NBA of life. This is the NBA of life. You're starting a business, you're being given a club or two or three along the way. This is the NBA of life. You're scoring a deal or two or three along the way. That's the NBA of life. No book can teach you to the same extent as the doing, the being courageous, picking up the cudgels, and really taking a chance and doing in life. And it applies not only just in entrepreneurship, it applies in life broadly. That sitting on a chair and worrying, it's like sitting on a rocking chair, and all it does is goes worry, 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 and you get nowhere. I'm saying let go of the invisible chains, get out of this rocking chair, and take steps towards a meaningful change in your life. And I'm sure you will never regret it. And I look forward to you writing a book one day because of a reflection on the so-called NBA of life. I'm preparing to write a book that's going to be a reflection on the so-called NBA of my life, because that's the essence of what you have to learn. Get out there and do.
Thank you so much. You were really awesome. I learned a lot. I hope to have you on again for another interesting conversation and discussion. Hopefully next time we will have a panel, so we can have a
Yeah,
very,
be nice. That'll be
yes,
nice.
yeah, because you got a lot to say, you got a lot to share, and it was interesting having you. Like I was just there and hmm, taking it all in.
No,
So
thank you
thank you
very
so
much.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You was awesome. I hope people who get to view and watch this later will take a lot and will actually come and join in on the Investec initiatives, and hope it will serve them and do them justice in their entrepreneurial journey. So to everyone who is watching, thank you so much. I'll catch you on our next session. I'll definitely put out my poster for the next one. So cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for having us.
God damn. What else?